Are AR pistols legal in New York State? I saw a video and some stuff floating around. I'm not going to name names. I'm not sure if he's claiming that some AR pistols are like this or all AR pistols are like this, but if some of it is right, some of it is incorrect. And what that is claiming that all AR pistols in New York State are somehow classified as a other weapon. What the ATF classifies as an other weapon is a firearm that doesn't fall under a shotgun, pistol, or a rifle, which would be guns like the Mossberg Shockwave or other weapons. So it doesn't fall neatly into the category of shotgun, pistol, or rifle. So to add more clarification in here, for example, if it's a 12.5 barrel receiver that was built transferred as a pistol with a pistol brace, not a stock, as long as it has no vertical foregrip, that setup is generally treated as a pistol, whether the overall length is over 26 inches or is under. Whether it's over or under, if it doesn't have the vertical grip and is a pistol brace and doesn't run afoul of the NFA, it doesn't change a pistol into an other or an any other weapon. The 26-inch overall length threshold only really matters when you start adding certain features. Vertical foregrip under 26 overall length plus a foregrip can be classified as an any other weapon. That's an NFA item. 26 inches or longer plus a vertical foregrip typically becomes a non-NFA firearm other, not a any other weapon, which the others would be illegal in New York State. So a pistol, being a pistol, not adding a vertical foregrip with a pistol that has a pistol brace, whether it's over 26 inches total length or under 26 inches total length with a barrel length of under 16 inches, still remains as a pistol. So adding a stock, now it's a SBR, that would be completely illegal in New York State. So there's rumors floating around that all AR pistols are all of a sudden now completely illegal, which maybe in that part of the state, they're not allowed by the licensing department. But in upstate New York, if they are made compliant, they are completely legal with some gray areas. We're gonna go over how they're legal, what the gray areas are, and what's the most safest options they are. And I spoke to the Safe Act hotline, a state trooper sergeant, for over half an hour today, getting this information. How are some of the ways that New York State would allow an AR pistol to be legal if your county allows it to be added to your pistol permit, which in many downstate counties, they don't even allow it, even if it meets the requirements to be compliant by New York State. So New York State classifies an assault pistol as any pistol that is semi-automatic and can take a detachable magazine and has one or more of the banned features. So the two major qualifiers, the same thing with semi-automatic rifles, is the ability to take a detachable magazine or being semi-automatic and having one of the more of the banned features. The banned features are being over 50 ounces. Another is taking a magazine outside of the standard pistol grip well. Another thing is having any threaded barrel, muzzle device, bayonet lug, any of the standard assault weapon features that all these different states use. But one of the ways that you go get around that to make your rifle New York State compliant, the same as the rifles, is removing the ability to take a detachable magazine, which is more of a gray area because New York State law doesn't define what actually fixed magazine is. There's no approved list of it. So gun stores and FFLs go based on their own interpretation of what fixed magazine actually is. Some epoxying it, some using AR maglock. It's all up to interpretation. Some are completely welding the upper and the lower together and putting screws through the magazine into the lower. So that's one way, is removing the ability to take the detachable magazine, because you're not able to get rid of all of the features, the banned features. You can't go featureless on an AR pistol because the thing that makes it not able to go featureless is the 50-ounce rule. So even if you get rid of all the other banned features, like magazine goes into the pistol grip, no flash hider, none of that stuff, it will still weigh over 50 ounces. So you either have to get rid of the ability to take a detachable magazine or its ability to be semi-automatic. If it is no longer semi-automatic, then it no longer falls into the assault pistol category. The same thing with rifles. If the rifle is no longer semi-automatic, it is no longer considered an assault weapon. The same thing with AR pistols. It is not considered an assault pistol if it's not semi-automatic. So there is, after speaking to the state troopers, if you have a bolt action AR pistol, if you have a pump action AR pistol that is truly only functions with the cycling of the manually operation, it is no longer semi-automatic and can no longer be classified as an assault pistol. And those firearms, that pistol being registered, purchased through an FFL, and put onto your pistol permit would be classified as a pistol. It would not be classified as a other weapon. So it would be New York State compliant underneath the SAFE Act. And just because they are not allowed in your licensing department in the county that you live in downstate and other counties upstate does not mean that they're illegal by the definition of the New York state law and by the counties that actually do allow them. Obviously, the pistol brace definition is up for debate and everything like that, whether you can shoulder it, whether you can't, whether it's going to be considered an SBR if you do that. But if it's set up in the configuration that is allowed by the ATF, if you're shooting it with one hand and you don't have a LPVO or a scope where you have to stick your head up to it, if it has a long eye relief, you're able to hold it and shoot it as a one-handed pistol with a pistol brace, and it's under 16 inches, the firearm classification has to be classified as a pistol, not a rifle, not an SBR, not an other. So when you pull out your pistol permit, it shows 5.56 and the make and model of the firearm. I figured it out myself. I got legal counsel upstate and I called the New York State hotline so many times they remember who I am at this point. One of the things that they told me is even in the New York State penal law is an AR lower still has a legal definition being allowed in New York State. Because it's one thing if you have a Mossberg shockwave, that's completely illegal, that was banned. But AR lowers, that might have a not definitive position yet, it has a clear definition of what it's going to be in New York State. New York State banned other weapons, Mossberg shockwave, etc. But for people that own clearly defined AR pistols, not ones that are considered an other, but ones that are clearly defined the firearm classification, not being a rifle, not being an other, not being a shotgun, being a registered AR pistol put on your pistol permit, legally purchased from a gun store with paperwork, that is made New York State compliant either by fixed magazine or making it non-semi-automatic is legal in New York State. The fixed magazine being a less defined area because New York State doesn't go into detail of what actually counts as fixed magazine is up to interpretation. Making it manually operated is completely legal, and I got the complete green light from the state troopers over at the New York State hotline that is legal, and that you can't turn a rifle into a pistol, but a Type 7 FFL gunsmith dealer can turn a pistol into a rifle and completely do a new classification. So there's some of the things that he even explained to me, the sergeant over at the state police in Albany, the Safe Act hotline. So I don't mean to be heated, but I see some of these things and it's just I want to clear things up and explain it from the laws that I've researched and speaking to the state troopers directly over at the New York State hotline and getting their word on it, which they are the New York State actual word to mouth on what the SAFE Act actually says and what's legal and what's not. So the final summary of this, AR pistols that are from an FFL that have a clear classification as a pistol, not an other, cannot be classified as an other if they are classified as a pistol. Just because they have less than the 16-inch barrel or 26 inches in total length does not mean they automatically fall under an other category. If they ban other weapons doesn't mean that that falls into an other weapon. If it's a pistol registered as a pistol, legally, New York State compliant, it is a pistol and cannot be considered a other weapon. Capiche? So with that, if you enjoyed, if you learned something today, hit the like, hit the follow, hit the subscribe. I'll come out with actually video on this in the future when the ATF settles these things for the federal, because what I talk about here is a state law. The federal law with the NFA is still being debated. But as for the state law, that is what's allowed, that is what's not allowed. Per what the penal code says, per what the state law says, per what the SAFE Act hotline says, okay? Because a pistol is a pistol. Like Joe Biden said, putting a brace on a pistol makes it into a gun. No.
Put a pistol on a brace, it turns into a gun. Makes it more, you can have a higher caliber weapon, a higher caliber bullet coming out of that gun. It's essentially turning it into a short barrel rifle.
A pistol is a pistol, okay? And most people with AR pistols out there nowadays that have them legally, after all this nonsense happened, they're classified as a pistol because a firearm, again, to reiterate, on your pistol permit has to be a pistol. You cannot have an other firearm on your pistol permit. It has to come from a federal firearms dealer. The lower receiver is considered the pistol. It is a pistol in and itself, made to be New York State compliant, then brought to your licensing department, added onto your pistol permit, and once it's added onto your pistol permit and being New York State compliant, it is legal in one of the two methods, and to shoot it as it is intended one-handed using the strap pistol brace until the ATF clears up their definition and gets settled out in court definitively. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like, hit the follow, hit the subscribe if you learned something today. Again, I'm not throwing any shade out there. I just got fired up based on the experience that I had. And then I see a video floating around saying everybody that has them, which most people that have them legally, they're considered pistols, that all of a sudden they're an other weapon and they're illegal, which is not true. Other weapons are illegal, but not all AR pistols that are actually pistols are others. They're not others, they're pistols. So there's no shade. I respect this person. I appreciate what this person does for the community, but I wanted to clear that up. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you on the next one.